Alright, so these are the notes on section 2.1. So we're starting off with, first of all, finding the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts, and we have a quadratic problem here. So to find x-intercepts, we're going to set y equal to 0. When we set y equal to 0, we basically have a problem we have to factor. So either we have to factor it or we have to use quadratic formula to find the roots. So when I factor this, I find the roots are 3 and the roots are -1. So that means my x-intercept is 3, 0, and my my x-intercept is -1, 0. And then I want to find the y-intercepts, so I'm going to set the x values equal to 0. And those are easier because 0 squared and 2 times 0, all that cancels out, and you're just left with the -3. So y equals -3. And so my y-intercept is 0, -3. So then I could use the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts to approximate my graph. Okay, here's another one. X-intercepts and y-intercepts. So again, x-intercepts, I'm going to set y equal to 0. I have a problem I can factor. So I'm going to factor it into x plus 4 and x minus 1. So my x-intercept, or my roots, are -4 and +1, and my x-intercepts are -4, 0, and 1, 0. Y-intercepts, I'm going to set my x equal to 0, so that means all the x's go away and I'm left with just the -4. And so y equals -4, so my y-intercept is 0, -4. So then we're going to get into discussing the equation of a circle. So this is something that you probably saw in geometry, but this is a review. So the equation of a circle is r squared equals x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. And h and k are the center of the circle, and r is the radius of the circle. So if you notice, this comes from the distance formula. So the radius is simply the distance from the center of the circle. That's the definition. So the distance formula that you learned is x minus x, x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared equals the distance. I know it's a little squished in there. But so basically what we did is we just squared both sides. So the distance becomes the radius squared, and the x minus x squared and the y minus y squared, the one of the x's and one of the y's is a point on the circle. So that's where we come up with that, and the other one is the center of the circle. So here we have an equation in standard form. So if we compare this formula to the formula up here, x and 2 mean that 2 has to be my h, and y and 4 means that 4 has to be my k. And the 3 squared is the radius, so its radius is 3. So my center would be the point 2, 4, and the radius would be 3. So if I wanted to use that to graph it, on my graph paper I would plot the point, I would plot the center, so 2, 4, and there's my center. And then I would use that center and I'd count off my radius. So 3 to the right, and then go back to the center, 3 to the left, and then go back to the center, and then 3 up, and then back to the center, and then 3 down, and then if I connect all those points together, there's the circle. Alright, so here's another one. So again, we're comparing this formula to our formula here. So the h and the 3 are in the same position, so h has to be 3. But on this one, notice that the k and the 1 are in the same position, right? But this is minus k, and this is plus 1. So k is going to be -1. And then the radius is going to be this number, the square root of the 25, but it's square rooted because that's r squared. So the radius is 5. Okay, so we'll keep going. So here we have another problem, and it says find the standard form. So I'm giving you a center and I'm giving you a point, and I'm asking you for the equation in standard form. This is the equation in standard form. So the first thing I've got to do is figure out what my radius is. So basically I'm using the distance formula to find the radius, or I'm taking this formula for the circle and I'm substituting this for x and y, and I'm substituting this for h and k. So then I'm going to have, here's my formula, so the x is going to be the -1, the h is going to be the -4, the y is going to be the 2, and the k is going to be the -2. And then I do the mathematics, and I come up with r squared equals 25. So r squared is 25, so r is 5. Now I can take this and substitute it back in here, but this time I'm leaving off the x and the y, and I'm just putting in the h and the k. So there's my h value, the -4, and there's my k value, the 2, and there's my standard form for the circle. Okay, alright, so here's another one like that. So again, the center and the point. Now if this wasn't the center, that'd be a different problem. So the center is 6, -3, the point is 4, 1. So this is going to be my h and k, and this is going to be my x and y. The center is always your h and k. So I'm putting 4 in for x. I'm putting 6 in for h. I'm putting 1 in for y. I'm putting -3 in for k, so it becomes +3. I'm doing the mathematics on the side, so I get r squared equals 20, r equals square root of 20, or 2 square roots of 5. So now if I put this back into this formula, r squared is 20, my h value is 6, my k value is -3, and so there's my standard form for my equation. Alright, so now we have examples here where it says, now I want to go from a general form to a standard form. The general form doesn't tell me the center or the radius, it doesn't help me graph it. Standard form does. So we're going to do this by completing the square, and I know that this is sort of new to y'all, so we're going to go through it a little slower. So the first thing I did was rearrange the problem so that my x's are grouped together, my y's are grouped together, and then I move the 5 to the other side. Now I left gaps here because I'm going to fill in the blanks, right? So I'm going to complete the square. So to complete the square, remember you take half of the middle term, so half of 8, which is 4. 4 squared is 16. So I'm going to add 16 to this side, but I also have to add 16 to this side. Then I'm going to complete the square on the y. So half of 4 is 2, squared is 4. So I'm going to add 4 to this side, and I'm going to add 4 to this side. So now this part of the problem and this part of the problem are perfect square trinomials, so I can factor those by doing x plus 4 squared and y plus 2 squared. And then when I add all these together on the side, I get 25. So there's my standard form. So now I can tell from this my center is -4, -2, there's my center, and my radius is square root of 25, which is 5. Okay, alright, here's another one. Let's try this one. So same thing, we group the x's together, we group the y's together, and then we move the 11. Complete the square. Half of 6. Half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So I add 9 to both sides. Okay. Half of 8 is 4. Squared is 16. So I add 16 to both sides. Again, these should be perfect square trinomials. So I took the square root of x, the square root of 9. That's where I got the x plus 3 squared. And then I did the square root of y and the square root of 16, and that's where I got the y plus 4 squared. And then I add all this together and I get 33. So again, center of the circle is -3, -4. Radius is square root of 33. Alright, our last one is not as pretty, but it is still possible. So on the last one here, remember when we talked about completing the square, you can only complete the square if you have coefficients of 1. And we don't have coefficients of 1. So our first step is to divide everything by 9 to get rid of the 9 in front of the x squared and the 9 in front of the y squared. If it wasn't 9, it would be a little bit harder problem to work, but we won't do one of those right away. So we're going to divide by 9, and we end up with x squared plus y squared minus 6/9 y, and then equals 17/9. Alright, so I did reduce it a little bit, so 6/9 becomes 2/3. So half of 2/3, basically the 2's end up canceling out, and we end up with 1/3 squared, which is 1/9. So I add 1/9 to both sides. Now on the x, there is no second term, so I don't have to worry about completing it. So I just bring down the x squared, here's my 1/9, here's 18/9. So again, perfect square trinomial, the square root of that is y, the square root of that is 1/3. The sign always comes from the middle term, so that's why we have the negative in front of the 1/3 this time. And then 18 divided by 9 is 2. So there we have it. Our center is 0, 1/3, because there's nothing with the x. The radius is square root of 2. Hope this helps.